Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. This past week saw new data from the USDA in addition to a heat up of global trade tensions. All the while, farmers are planning ahead for that 2025 season. Joining us to begin the show is Jordan Howe. He serves as the Nutrien Area Financial Manager for Nutrien Ag Solutions. And Jordan, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to our growers today.
Before we talk about what your growers are looking forward to in 2025, give us a little reminder. What is it you do at Nutrien?
Yeah, so I'm in our Nutrien Financial business unit under Nutrien. So Nutrien Financial is our self-lending business unit for our retail ag organization, Nutrien Ag Solutions. So we're able to come up with solid financing solutions for our growers, partnered with the agronomic expertise of our local Nutrien Ag Solutions and our crop consultants in the field. So we're really looking to bring financing solutions for our growers, but most importantly, develop a capital management strategy around the best agronomic solutions that we can offer here at Nutrien Ag Solutions.
It's about combining those levels of expertise. And now, Jordan, as you're out talking to growers around the country, what are you hearing about their concerns as they look ahead to this next season?
Well, it really depends where you're at, Mike. We talk to growers in the South, and cotton's a tough conversation right now with cotton prices in the 60s. It's hard to pencil that out no matter what you're doing. So a lot of conversations down there about can they switch to corn, may have record acres planted in the peanuts down there in the Southeast. When we look at that, and then up here in the Corn Belt, we talk about corn and soybeans. I think we're optimistic. We know we have to grow as many bushels as possible. Whether commodity prices where they are, we still need to raise a heck of a crop like we have been fortunate enough to do the last few years. And then when we look out west with differences of some catastrophic events out there over the last several months, but there's still, in those different markets, there's optimism, but there's definitely concerns, and a lot of those uncontrollable concerns.
Yes, indeed. And I'm hearing a lot of concerns in particular about margins getting tighter for 2025. Jordan, from Nutrien Financial's perspectives, are there any tools you can provide to growers to help manage some of these challenges?
Absolutely, Mike. And that's really why Nutrien Financial was brought to our growers as an option. And it's with all the uncontrollables out there right now and uncertainty, what we're looking to do is provide certainty on the capital management strategy for our growers, offering low competitive interest rate programs that are at fixed interest rates to lock in for 2025, and also provide terms that allow them not to have to pay for it till after harvest, when hopefully cash flow is better for the growers, and to give our growers more flexibility throughout this growing season, but also certainty with partnering with Nutrien Ag Solutions, Nutrien Financial.
If we've got viewers who want to learn more about the opportunities with Nutrien Financial, Jordan, where would you send them for more information?
I'd send them, first of all, to go talk with their local crop consultant at their local Nutrien Ag Solutions branch. You can also find more information or where the closest Nutrien Ag Solutions branches at nutrienagsolutions.com. And one other cool thing we have there that you'll find at nutrienagsolutions.com is our digital hub, where you can surface all your information as far as Nutrien Ag Solutions. You can look at the financing options we have available on the digital hub with your own personal login. So that's a cool option that really we're looking to provide more information to our growers about what's available out there.
That's what it's all about. Jordan Howe, Nutrien Ag Solutions, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Our market segment this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up with essential news and commodity market moves for your farm at farmfutures.com. Both traders and farmers had to deal with a deluge of headlines this past week. Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing in Britton, South Dakota joins us for an update. Dwayne, thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
On Tuesday, we saw the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates, the WASDE report, come out. Dwayne, a bit of a snooze fest. Were there any surprises on that WASDE report to you?
No, really none at all. We've seen USDA punt before on reports, but this one was pretty epic. There was no change straight down the line, pretty much. World stocks, slight adjustments there. Soybeans down just a little bit, but if you're going to call that a bullish move, that you're really putting lipstick on a pig there, because the world soybean stocks are still going to be record high.
All right, so we got the WASDE out of the way, Dwayne. The next big tranche of government data will be coming at the end of the month. We'll be taking a look at prospective plantings reports. For one, USDA says we might be around 94 million acres of corn. What's your head tell you?
I'm a little higher than that. I think we could be at 95 and a half. And we'll see. I live in Northeast South Dakota. Up in this area, we get kind of wet, have prevent plant. But right now, things look awesome. And last year, we had 4.5 million acres to prevent plant in the nation. Now, Dakotas are always a big prevent plant area. And right now, we're dry and we look good. I think those prevent plant acres could be as low as 1.5 million. Mother Nature will have something to say about it, I'm sure. But if that happens, Mike, then we've got 3 million more acres out there. So I think we could have even more corn acres than USDA suggests right now.
And Dwayne, corn-bean ratio favors corn at this point, especially as we look out to those harvest prices. How are you advising growers to manage that risk of potentially 95.5 million corn acres? That's gonna be bearish December, isn't it?
I know. Well, we were hedgers before when the price was a little higher. We're not here. I don't like the price here now. So it's an easy punt for us, just saying don't do anything. I still really think, even with 95.5 million acres, world corn supply is tight domestically. Old crop is getting tighter all the time, it seems like, with USDA reports. So I'm waiting for us to rally back up. I think we'll take out the February highs yet, and obviously we'll be hedgers as we go there. If you're doing anything right now, I'd actually prefer people to buy courage calls. That way it gives them the courage to sell when we do get up there.
That is a great point. Take that risk out of your back pocket right now and manage that a little bit. Dwayne, while we're thinking about the feed grains, the wheat market, is that currently acting as a wet blanket on corn futures, or is wheat starting to be supportive?
Poor wheat. I think it's starting to be supportive, but I think I've said that for months, and it seems like after we rally a little bit, somebody slams that thing back down. The wheat market has been something that the funds for the last 4 or 5 years have always spread off by, I'll buy corn and then I'll sell wheat. I'll buy beans, I'll sell wheat. That kind of continues, but we had great weekly export sales for wheat. Maybe the lower dollar and the lower price finally generated some demand.
All right, that is good to see. Thinking about that WASDE report from earlier this week, Dwayne, we also had an update on the soybean market. No changes to the corn balance sheet. Did they make any adjustments on the soybean side of the ledger?
They didn't. They changed just a little bit in feed and residual, which is just kind of a don't even look at that type category anyway. They just shuffled some bushels around. So no, very quiet there too. Like I said, I'm still looking at the world supply situation, and that's the problem moving forward on the soybean market. My marketing plan is a little different and much more bearish when it comes to soybeans. I'm not doing anything here at these prices, but if we get a rally above 1050 on, say, less planting acres intended for soybeans, from 1050 to 11, I'm going to sell beans really hard.
You mentioned potentially 95.5 million acres of corn. Dwayne, if that's where corn acres come in, what's your sense on soybean acres for this coming growing season?
Well, the outlook for them was at 84 million. I'm slightly lower than that, like 83 and a half, which I think will generate actually a bullish reaction on the 31st, if I'm correct with that, because all of a sudden that ending stock number gets really tight. The reason I'm still a bear is I'm much lower on new crop export demand. I think China, these tariffs, they're going to dig their heels in. Watch come around May. That's when China usually starts buying our new crop supplies. And if they don't do that, that might be a sign that export demand could be down 200 million bushels.
That would be noticeable. We'll be back for more with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing when we return. Our market segment this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up with essential news and commodity market moves for your farm at farmfutures.com. And we're talking about those moves in the commodity markets with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing. Dwayne, just before break, you mentioned the fact that soybean exports could get awful bearish later on this year. What are you watching around the world that makes you nervous about U.S. soy exports?
Well, the biggest thing is the size of the crop in South America. You combine Argentina and Brazil, it's going to be record high. Now, we've come off the highest estimates. Some people had Brazil as much as like 176 million metric ton. USDA is at, I think, 169 right now. doesn't matter. From 168 to 172, it's going to be a really big crop, and China likes to buy the cheapest supply they can. So that's one of the reasons I'm bearish new crop export demand for us.
You know, we've heard a lot about tariffs in the news recently, and they're on again, they're off again. Dwayne, as you look at just flat price of soybeans on the world market, are Brazilian beans currently cheaper than U.S. beans, even without tariffs in the picture?
Yeah, they sure are. They're about 45, 50 cents cheaper than we are right now, which is actually fairly tight for this time of year. And a couple of months ago, I thought they would be like $1 to $1.50 cheaper than us. But our currency, the U.S. dollar, has really dropped, and that does help a little bit. But we got to remember, China's going to buy the cheapest soybean out there. So if it's 4 cents or 45 cents, they're still going to buy from Brazil, especially with the whole tariff stuff that you mentioned. Canada, Mexico, Europe, all that's on again, off again every day. But China's just sitting back there. And I think they're in an area where they can dig their heels in possibly a little bit. Their economy is slow. They can buy cheaper beans from Brazil with this record crop. So I am worried what our new crop export could look like here in the future.
And we should be watching for those exports, Dwayne. You think later this summer is when we'd start to see, later this spring is when China would start buying from us again?
Yeah, exactly. Now, like this past week, we had great sales to China again. They're buying our old crop beans, which makes you kind of scratch your head like, okay, but whatever. I'm just glad they're here. But for that new crop, look around in the month of May. They should start buying our new crop supplies then. And if we get off to a very slow pace there, a lot of times it's hard to get caught back up. But here's the thing, we still need to grow a crop here in the U.S. But yeah, watch for that export demand from China in May. All
right, Dwayne. One market that hasn't seemed to have been impacted too much by tariff headlines is the cattle market. We keep pushing back into or near record territory. Is this rally, does it still have legs?
It sure seems like it. Right now, I'm a big guy that watches the trade action, and the trade action is just bullish as heck right now. It seems like we make a new high every day, especially in the feeder market. And I always kind of like going back to the whole feeders or the leaders things. Now, April live cattle haven't made new highs yet. I think their high is back at 208. I think right now it sure has potential to get back up there. The cash is strong. If you don't mind, I'd back up a couple of weeks ago. It seems like packers kind of slowed down the chain speeds, and they can do that to try to generate higher box beef prices. Or in this case, I think they might have done it just to push cattle back in the feedlots to go into this, what I'm going to call it, a production hole where we don't have a lot of cattle to be killed. And I think from like about last Tuesday, I think packers came in and started buying the board as a straight hedge themselves because they know they're going to have to pay up for cash cattle in the future.
All right. We're seeing really strong prices. Dwayne, are you advising producers to hedge at these levels?
Absolutely. That's the thing. I'm going to talk bullish, and then cattle guys like to just hang up the phone then and wait for the high, but don't do that here. This is such high prices. It doesn't matter what I think. We were buying a lot of put options here, selling a lot of LRP. Just at least put a floor under these prices. Especially for the guys out there with new baby calves on the ground. You can go out to next January, lock in LRP right now. It's a lot easier to get up at 2 a.m. if you know you're making money.
That is so true, Dwayne. Dwayne Bussey, Bolt Marketing, thank you so much for joining us this week.
And thanks for having me.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, Greg Solier's been watching those changing weather patterns as spring gets closer, and he joins us now. Greg, Pacific Northwest saw action last week. Is that activity expected to continue this week?
One more storm, actually a couple of them here early in the week, and it's been really a plethora of systems that come in via the west. Not only Pacific Northwest, but southward into California. They merge, they phase together. We get the jet stream pattern to dig deep into the plains, and boy, you folks across the Dakotas and points on the southward, second week in a row, you're dealing with either high wind or accumulating snow or tough conditions on livestock operations. Literally an inland hurricane has blown on through this part of the country over the past few days. With a couple of more systems, again, relatively weak in comparison, one south of Yellowstone, another one on shore, but significant moisture, snows above about 5,000 or 6,000 feet. It's been a decent winter season, precip-wise, into the Pacific Northwest. Moving on through the late portion of the week, one more system to make its way across Big Sky into the Dakotas. A few sprinkles and snowflakes in the coldest of the air across the Canadian prairie. February. Temps moderate. The sun comes out. High pressure builds on in. The wind drops down, and a fine, fair weather go of it for outdoor work and kind of assessing things coming off the spat of moisture in the Pacific Northwest later in the week. This is the southern reflection, the last in a series of these storms, much weaker in comparison to the past two that have come out of the southwestern reaches, kicking up severe weather and hurricane force wind. Dust storms last week from Nebraska and Kansas on southward. We still get into a couple of severe storms over the high plains areas and points out of the east, but it is again at least significant, much needed moisture in what has been still, despite the active weather pattern, an abysmal moisture season in through Southern California and the southwestern mountains. We're back into comfortable weather for outdoor work. Ball clubs down there in the desert southwest and through Arizona enjoying the sunshine and the warmth. Milder high pressure across California. Warm, dry weather back into the central and southern plain states too.
Do you see severe weather making a move into the northern Corn Belt next week?
We're going to do it all over again. I tell you, last week, chasing these storms that were racing along at 50 miles an hour, the general wind aloft, moving downward and generating wind gusts around the low last week to 50 to 60 miles per hour. Not to mention that squall line or two that came on through, and maybe not quite the strength, but it's still here. The gradient is in position temperature-wise. The jet stream is buckled, and the showers and thunderstorms will be making their way across the Corn Belt. Some snow on the backside. Again, we need the moisture, dryness and drought in mind. A couple of sprinkles later in the week and a couple of snowflakes up into the Great Lakes region with slightly colder air to the north, but still, despite the drop-off in temperature readings, it's a return to more seasonal temperatures and above across much of the Corn Belt locales, especially east and south later on into the week. Severe weather, yep, going to do it all over again. Surprisingly, some pretty good moisture of late in this particular part of the winter wheat belt. We're too wet in the Delta down through areas of Kentucky and Tennessee as well. We're back into play, showers and thunderstorms. It's much needed moisture. Milder, drier high pressure across the central and south end of winter wheat as the late week progresses. A couple of showers east of the Delta with a weak weather system moving on through the desert southwest.
What are you watching as you look over to the East Coast, Greg?
One more winder-upper, the third in a string of these things, but boy, it certainly will pale in comparison to the storm of last week and its high wind and widespread severe weather. Showers and a couple of thunderstorms from the Lakes region down into the Ozarks. Some snow melt underway across areas of southeastern Canada. Windy, colder weather and a couple of flakes into the northern Great Lakes region. No big concern. Back into high pressure here. Cooler, not colder. Northwestern Corn Belt. Seasonal weather conditions and dry time across much of the Corn Belt locales east and south later in the week. High pressure through the mid-Atlantic region dries a bone here, 90% short on soil moisture across Florida, but we do have showers and thunderstorms from southwest to northeast early to middle parts of the week with drier air moving into the Tennessee Valley, lower Mississippi Valley, back into the southern plains.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. It's been a week now since our team has had the chance to reflect a little bit on our time in Denver at the Commodity Classic 2025. While we were on the grounds, we heard from farmers about a whole host of issues. Of course, we talked a lot about the expected economic returns of 2025, and we heard from Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins on some of the policy issues that could impact our industry. But one concern that came up from nearly every grower I talked to was the ongoing threat of weeds that cannot be stopped by the chemicals that we've had in our toolbox for years past. Farmers grappling with water hemp, grappling with Palmer amaranth, looking for ways to keep those fields clean all season long. And the herbicide industry has been responding. We had the chance to talk with our friends at Corteva, Brooklyn Dalton, about what farmers can do to keep those fields clear in the 25 season.
Well, start clean, stay clean would be my first advice. The seed has the most yield potential when it's in the bag, and the minute you take it out of the bag, there's all kind of yield robbing things that can happen. Nutrients that the weed takes from the corn crop, water, sunlight, those all compete with the corn crop and can limit yields. So we want to make sure those weeds don't even have a chance. So make sure you put a good residual herbicide down with multiple modes of action that are effective. Resicor Rev is in our portfolio. It's something that we have available to growers that would give outstanding weed control pre-emergence to set a grower up for success for the season.
And Resicor's been out for a few years, is that right?
Yes, so we've had Resicor. We enhanced the formulation of Resicor and we developed Resicor Rev. With Resicor Rev, you get a wider application window because the acetochlor is encapsulated. So that wider application window means 28 days pre-plant to 24-inch tall corn. And we know Mother Nature can throw curveballs in the spring that growers have to manage. And by having that wider application window, we can still have a pretty good chance of getting our herbicide on at an effective time.
Yeah. When this time of year in particular, Brooklyn, do you encourage farmers to sit down and literally plan it out with a program for their herbicide needs for the year?
I definitely think it's great to plan. Now, I know sometimes things don't go to plan, but yes, great advice would be multiple modes of action with your residual herbicide, which we have that with Resicor Rev. Also plan on a second pass of residual weed control to make sure your fields stay clean for the whole season. We have a great post-emerge herbicide called Cairo. Cairo recently launched within the last year, and that goes on up to 24-inch tall corn as well. So consider using multiple modes of action and multiple applications of residual herbicides.
It's all about diversifying the way you're tackling those weeds, right? So they don't get too used to one particular form.
Yes, yeah. So we encourage multiple modes of action to work on that weed, and you may have several weeds in the field, so we want multiple modes of action because they can control different weeds too. But yeah, being able to change your program approach is great too. Between corn and beans, a lot of times naturally you're going to be using different modes of action if you're in a corn and bean rotation. But yes.
Curious about the Cairo. Last year, of course, you had it out there for growers. What was the response from the field? Is that something you work on?
As a matter of fact, I just had a grower here today who was telling us what an excellent experience he had with Cairo. He was very pleased with his weed control. The 3 modes of action, acetochlor, topramazole, and clopyralid, offered great control for the season, and he didn't have to go back with any kind of rescue treatment, which means in the end, he's saving dollars that way.
Right, he did not have to make an additional pass across the field. He saved that time, and he saved that wear and tear on his machinery.
That's right.
Brooklyn, let's talk Kyber Pro as we're thinking soybeans, because I think we are going to have some soybeans in the ground again this year. What's your advice to growers on that front?
We're excited to offer Kyber Pro. One thing that growers want is the convenience of a liquid herbicide. Kyber Pro is a liquid herbicide. It also has 3 effective modes of action, flumioxazin, metribuzin, and peroxysulfone. Very effective on the key weeds that growers are dealing with in their soybean crops. So it's a great setup. Highly recommend you come back with a planned residual like Inversa, which can be tank mixed with Enlist.
Okay, so you're seeing that work, and will this be the first year with Kyber Pro in soybeans, or were they out last year?
So we've had Kyber previously in our portfolio. We saw an opportunity to optimize that formulation, and so Kyber Pro comes with the confidence of a great formulation that mixes well and sprays well, and so growers can rest assured that they'll have a good application experience with Kyber Pro pre-emerge.
And all of these products are out for the 2025 planting season, right?
That's right, they're out for the 2025 planting season. We're seeing strong demand for all of these residuals. Growers have spent a lot of time at the booth talking to us about what's new. They're interested in the innovation Corteva is bringing forward. So we've gotten to talk a lot about those today. But we also look forward to talking about the future of the herbicide portfolios because we invest in R&D at Corteva. We're proud of that. For every dollar a grower spends with us, 1% of that goes back into R&D to make sure farming is sustainable for the future, and we have innovation coming further out.
You know, and I think just through this interview, we've heard you mention we had this chemical and we've enhanced it. We had this program and we've made it better. You're seeing that work play out year after year at Corteva.
Yes, we are. My job is really to spend time thinking about the future farmer. How are they going to apply herbicides? What's going to be important to them? What are the weed problems they're going to have? And design products that can be a solution for those issues. So I spend a lot of time in the current year, market year, but I'm also thinking of what the farmer of the future is going to need as we develop products here at Corteva.
Our thanks to Brooklyn Dalton of the Corteva Crop Health Team, thinking about what those farms of the future will need when it comes to weed control. There is certainly a lot to think about. Leave it here. We'll be back after this.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Well, in Denver at the Commodity Classic a week or so ago, we had the chance to catch up on a lot of new products in agriculture. Our very own Max Armstrong had the chance to check in with the leaders at BW Fusion about what their product is doing on the ground.
We want our products to be viewed as a solution, not as, I got to add something else to my tank, I got to add another thing, but truly have a solution, at the farm level to the grower. You're not buying a product, you're truly buying a solution when you work with BW Fusion.
I have seen some of the farmer testimonies, I think, online, and the feedback really is good. The growers say they haven't missed a beat. It's only going to enhance their operation.
Yeah, so most of, the growers we work with, we're extremely blessed, right? All of our dealers, all of our growers, we work with a great group, but, that's our impact, right? We enjoy working with each other. We enjoy working with farmers, and we enjoy laying our head down every night, doing well by the farmer. That's what our real goal is, is the integrity, it's the honesty. And I think that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing BW Fusion grow more and more as well, even from your side. It is just because of the integrity, the honesty, and going to the growers with a true solution, going to them with something different that they've not always done or maybe not looked at in the past.
One thing you guys do is to help make up for that little bit of setback that occurs with the early application of herbicide, correct? You can kind of cross that gap and get that plant going again after the herbicide application?
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, that's one of, the many solutions that we offer is, trying to manage crop stress, right? It's a huge talk in the industry, but it's extremely impactful, right? We keep applying more and more chemistry, trying to keep weeds back, doing all those things that are necessary, for all of our operations. As farmers, as stewards of the land, those things are necessary. But what we're trying to do is manage the stress, that's caused when we apply a herbicide. So looking at things like amino acids, we have a product called Relax RX, where basically when we're applying these herbicides, our plants are shutting down anywhere from 7 to 21 days. And across most of the Corn Belt in America, really, we're growing 90 to 117-day hybrids. And that plant's shut down 7 to 21 days. That's 7 to 21% essentially of their growing season. Obviously not perfect math there, but just those times we truly view that plant as a factory. So that plant's building sugars, doing all these things daily. If you own a factory and your plant's down 7 to 21 days, right? That's huge financially. It's huge for that business. Same thing with our crops. If our crops are down that 7 to 21 days, that's just valuable, precious time that we feel we're leaving on the table. And that's really where one of our focuses has become here lately.
What's the best way, Devin, for farmers to get more information about your product line?
Yeah, so they can visit www.bw-fusion.com. That's our website. They can check us out. They can call in, or if they know any of our agronomists, any of our team, reach out. We would be absolutely honored to work with them.
Thank you, Max. Farmers across the country are looking for new solutions to some of those old challenges on the ground. BW Fusion might fit.
Greg Solier is back now with his extended farm weather forecast for the nation.
Earlier in the program, Greg mentioned the possibility of severe weather over this next week. And Greg, I imagine that's going to come with some precipitation. Who could see it?
Well, I tell you, some folks last week got their clocks cleaned. We'll put it that way. Not necessarily from any excessive or heavy moisture, just the general wind field and the storm gusts that came roaring out of the southern plains and across the Corn Belt. This weather system a little more docile as we welcome in springtime on the 20th here, a little after 4 o'clock in the central time zone. But at least there's decent moisture for some of the still worst dry areas of the southeast, including Florida, 90% short and very short on topsoil moisture there. Some moisture here, 1/2 to 1 inch across the Corn Belt, and there will be a stripe of, again, some late season snowfall out towards the Corn Palace, north and west of there, up towards the Sioux, and a pretty good plume of moisture into the early portion of the week, Mike, for the northern and central Rockies, back into the southwestern states before weather quiets down there.
What are you seeing temperature-wise as the month of March comes to a close?
Still a building cold air mass over the western half of the continent. Its southern extension has been really much dominant here over the past few weeks. Temps more normalized, but very fluid across the western plains and southwestern reaches of the country. Not quite the warmth of recent days and weeks, but still mild enough over the eastern half of the country. Still get you a pretty busy weather pattern. We think 1 or 2 more cracks at moisture for the southwest. A tough moisture season there. We'll take anything we can get. Moisture will be back into play over the southeastern plains, winter wheat belt, severe weather potential, southern plains to the Ohio and points on southward. Moisture again for Florida, the eastern Corn Belt up north, again northern lakes region, back into the high plains. Snow is still in the forecast.
What do you see temperature-wise as April gets underway?
No fooling here. We've got the cold air getting a little more established, a pretty good late season cold wave weather pattern across the southern Canadian prairie. These little lobes of cold air are going to be dominant much of the springtime season. We think a little milder with time, but no shortage of moisture. And here's the warmth still holding out over the eastern Corn Belt to the eastern states and along the Gulf Coast, where we get more showers and thunderstorms, heavy and severe here, late season snow. Southeastern Canadian prairie, we've set records for wintertime here on snowfall totals back across parts of the Dakotas and Pacific Northwest, starting the drying trend in the Southwest.
Does it start to feel like summer anywhere as April gets into the middle part of the month?
Yeah, some areas, but mostly it's a warm weather pattern in the southeast, above average in the western and southwestern part of the country. The cold air is retreating, not fast enough, where it's still a very busy weather pattern from the northern Rockies, northern plains, across the northern and eastern Corn Belt into New England.
Our Farm Progress Update is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of high-quality, high-capacity field grain belts and augers. Visit brandt.ca for more. And this week, we're checking in with Kurt Arns. He's the senior editor of Nebraska Farmer. And Kurt, thanks for talking with us this week.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I understand you made it back safely from Commodity Classic in Denver. What was on your mind for Nebraska farmers while you were out there?
Well, that was the first time I'd ever been to Commodity Classic, so having it in Denver, nice and close for us, was great. And I spent a lot of time visiting with a lot of Nebraska farmers, but covered a lot of grain sorghum, actually, and visited with some of our farmers because Nebraska has grown more grain sorghum in the past couple of years. It's kind of been growing in acreage, probably due to a lot of the drought conditions we've had. And a lot of the farmers who had never grown grain sorghum in their lives, or maybe were in normal grain sorghum growing, areas of Nebraska that kind of converted over to corn and soybeans, are looking at the crop once again. So I spent a lot of time there. Also visited with some farmers, wheat growers, and looking at all the great new machinery too. So a lot of good sessions at Commodity. It was a really very good show to attend this year.
I thought so as well. I learned a lot. It was great to see all of those folks throughout our industry, and I'm intrigued by that conversation on grain sorghum. Kurt, what are some of the reasons that the industry gave for switching from corn to grain sorghum in Nebraska?
Well, just recently I was at the Nebraska Grain Sorghum Symposium in Grand Island, and one of the things that a lot of the growers are talking about is the potential for expansion in the ethanol industry using grain sorghum, but also they're really excited about the potential for human food. They had a chef at the symposium who was talking about, incorporating grain sorghum into diets and, all the great health benefits of this really ancient crop. So it's been kind of fun I did grow grain sorghum back in the day when I was farming full time. So I have a little bit of experience with it, but it's kind of fun to see kind of that resurgence, and also to hopefully help our farmer readers learn just a little bit more in case they want to give it a try.
Absolutely. We've got to be looking at all the opportunities in our toolbox here as we get into 2025. And Kurt, planting season will be here before we know it. How's it looking in Nebraska? Are you folks still dry in the eastern part of the state?
Well, I mean, we've had some moisture in recent weeks. We had probably less than normal on the snowfall side, but the eastern part of the state, is still measures on the drought monitor. We've still on that dry side. We had some wildfires in central Nebraska the last couple of weeks with these high winds, really low humidity and lack of snow. And then the west, it's always dry.
Yeah.
So, it's that thing, but hope springs eternal, so farmers are the optimists.
It does indeed. Kurt Arns, senior editor of Nebraska Farmer, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. I have orphans and oddballs on my mind this weekend. They didn't make many of them. Not many survived. They deserve some attention. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Lundell Plastics. Producers, you can protect your machinery from wear, minimize loss of grain at harvest, increase your efficiency in the field with those poly products from Lundell Plastics. Go to the website, lundellplastics.com. Well, the late John Harvey, the father of the classic tractor calendar, called them orphans and oddballs, and he gave them a little bit of special attention because there sure weren't many of them. They were pretty rare, as a matter of fact, and I have a great example this weekend, the Uncle Sam tractor. Yeah, they didn't make many of these for sure. There's only one known to be in existence. The company was the U.S. Tractor and Machinery Company that started in Chicago in 1918, then a year later moved to Menasha, Wisconsin. The company was only around for 5 years. An example of the dozens of tractor companies once in the business. The only known Uncle Sam tractor still around is this one. At the American Tractor Museum, Perryville, Missouri. I talk about it often because it's a great place. You need to get some tickets. Send mom and dad there or your grandparents. Go yourself, for heaven's sakes, and see the American Tractor Museum. Only about an hour and a half south of the Gateway Arch at Perryville, Missouri. You'll see other orphans and oddballs like an Illinois tractor, an Indiana tractor, a Plymouth. That might fall into the category as well. This guy's not an oddball. We're proud to call him a friend. Mark Stock checks in with the Big Iron Report.
Well, hello, Max. March is historically a very big month for auctions, and that's no exception this upcoming week. A very big sale, 900 plus items sell in Hamilton, Illinois on Tuesday, March the 18th. It's the Farmer and Dealer Farm Machinery Auction. Greg and Diana Jones are retiring, featuring a New Holland 9184 four-wheel drive tractor, John Deere 9500 combine. Paul Sheriff is retiring. They'll have 60 items. And sales continue on Wednesday, March the 19th. Bennett Farms from Newberry, Indiana will sell. Blue Stem Farms LLC from Chestertown, Maryland will sell a 2020 John Deere 1775 16-row 30 planter. Cleveland Farms LLC from Maxville, Kansas will sell 75 items. Farmers Cooperative in Milford, Nebraska will sell 90 items. Janes and Son Farms, Hugonton, Kansas will be selling. J-Ton Contractors in Lincoln, Nebraska. Marvin Elder Farms Inc., the retirement sale in Tribune, Kansas. O'Hanlon Seed Inc. out of Lexington, Nebraska. Schwager Land and Cattle LLC out of Orchard, Nebraska. Shelley Hubler in Mulvane, Kansas. Vincent and Trish Freeze retirement sale, Bushton, Kansas. Max, these are outstanding sales with quality equipment.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Geringoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than the closest competitor at Geringoff.com. Geringoff, proudly built in the American heartland. We've been getting to know the leaders serving on the National FFA Officer Team, and this week we're talking with Jack Lingenfelter. He represents the Southern region as a vice president. And Jack, thanks for talking with us this week.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
What was it that made you want to be a part of the FFA family?
Well, I'll be honest, when I was a 6th grader, the very appealing thing about being in the National FFA organization was free food at the chapter meetings. That really attracted me to attend my first ever FFA meeting. But really, there's one word that comes to mind, and that's community. I stayed in FFA because of the amazing community that's given me a sense of direction for my life, and that's service and leadership in agriculture. But in one word, it's community.
Now, of course, you have built on that service leadership contingent, and of course, now serving on the national team. What have been some of the highlights of your year as a national officer?
Yeah, just meeting some amazing people and getting to travel to some amazing places. I'll tell you, our team traveled to the country of Japan recently. This past January, we spent 10 days in Japan. And I remember specifically, we were sitting in a traditional tea drinking ceremony, and I'm with my 5 teammates and our coaches, and we're learning about how to drink tea and the official ceremony there in Japan. And as I look to my right, I see on the wall this phrase, Ichi-e, Ichi-go. And the phrase in English means one life, one opportunity. And essentially, the meaning of this was that we were to be grateful for every single moment that we had. And so I remember sitting in that tea drinking ceremony surrounded by my teammates in an amazing place, amazing country with this amazing culture, and just being very grateful for the opportunity. So yeah, that's one opportunity that I've loved. And this amazing experience in national office has been, I have one life and this one opportunity to make it count. It's been amazing.
That's fantastic, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and good luck with your future in agriculture.
Thank you so much, sir.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by AGI, supporting your expertise with industry-leading grain handling, storage, conditioning, and monitoring solutions. AGI, we're right there with you. Springtime is one of the busiest times on farms across the country, and Chad Colby joins us this week to help make sure we all make it back to our families for supper.
It's definitely no secret over the last 10 or 15 years, farm equipment just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And with our planting season right around the corner here in the Midwest, I wanted to remind everyone, when you've got your equipment at home in the shed and you're getting it ready, to look over all the lights on your equipment. Make sure everything's functioning properly. New equipment nowadays has got a really good lighting package on it, or maybe it's time to add some additional lights to your implements. It's pretty easy to do that nowadays. You can buy kits from your local implement dealership, and the new lights, as you can see here, they're so bright. And don't forget about your slow-moving vehicle signs. They've been around forever, and some of them, well, they might be getting faded and old. You can see here on this tractor's just a few years old. So is the implement. They still are in great condition. Your local implement dealer, they have them in stock. It goes a long ways, especially when someone's not used to farm equipment, seeing that slow-moving vehicle sign. For me personally, even as a young man, I remember the challenges of pulling in and out of the field. I still help on some farms today, and there's nothing worse than pulling out onto a field with people not expecting what you're going to do. And as we said, equipment keeps getting bigger and bigger, so you need more room to negotiate that turn. And probably the most dangerous thing is that dreaded left-handed turn for both the operator of the equipment and you and your vehicle if you don't know that's coming. I think it goes without saying, when you see the equipment on the road, it's pretty easy to pull over and give some space, provided your road is big enough to do so. This video clip here is from the Kimball Farms down in Texas. They're about halfway done with their corn, but as you can see here, these roads, they've got great shoulders, but a lot of roads don't have that room. So if you see farm equipment and you're driving in your car or truck, give a little bit of extra space. And for those of you getting ready to hit the roads, make sure all those lights are working. There's always horror stories from accidents in the spring, and anything we can do to prevent that would be a great thing. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. It's amazing how much swapping out those old bulbs for LEDs can add to visibility up and down the road. With nearly every row crop commodity producer looking at tighter or perhaps even negative margins this year, concerns are mounting about how to best maximize their fertility. Max Armstrong had the chance to talk with the leaders of Phosphollutions about their recent product, Rhizozorb, and how it could help.
Rhizozorb 839.0 is a next generation dry phosphate fertilizer. It's more efficient than MAP or DAP. So that allows a grower to apply a little less fertilizer on a per acre basis and save on average about $5 to $7 per acre. And with a small yield bump, he can gain about a $20 ROI from switching from MAP or DAP to Rhizozorb.
And when you take a look at commodity prices being under pressure, that's not insignificant. What about the long-term prospects for what's going on in that field? Will you reduce your phosphates over the long haul?
We have in more than 600 on-farm trials and small plot replicated trials with Rhizozorb. We have conclusively demonstrated that we can maintain plant tissue tests and yields with Rhizozorb at 50% less applied phosphate with zero impact to that soil phosphorus level. So we know we're not drawing down soil test values.
That is good thing to know. How does Rhizozorb compare with phosphate enhancing products that you have out there already now?
Yeah, so there's a lot of enhancing products. With Rhizozorb, it doesn't cost more to use. It works very consistent across crops and soil types. And at the end of the day, it's going to make that phosphorus you applied more plants available, improve uptake, and have a stronger ROI.
How many seasons of experience have there been with Rhizozorb, Craig?
So Rhizozorb was actually developed at Penn State College in the 90s. Over the last 10 years, our team has done hundreds of trials, many large-scale field trials across more than 18 states. And so we've now are going into our fourth year of commercially available products. So seeing very consistent results, very nice ROI on Rhizozorb.
You've had good feedback from the producers who've had the experiences with it?
Yeah, I've actually been, it's very exciting how growers, how enthusiastic they are about the product. They know that their traditional phosphate fertilizers are very inefficient, that they tie up in the soil, and that they have to apply more phosphate every year to make sure they have enough plant available phosphate. And of course, as you know, there's problems with algae blooms and runoff, and so Rhizazorb helps with that as well.
Helps with that environmental story, by all means. What about the geography? Is it working well everywhere in the Corn Belt of the United States?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have trials in over 18 states, so we see very consistent response from Nebraska all the way to Delmarva Peninsula. We've had trials in the southeast as well that again show very consistent response that we can meet or even increase yields a little bit with 50% less applied phosphate using Rhizazorb 839L.
Thank you, Max, for that conversation. And if you're curious about Rhizazorb, you can visit their website, phospholutions.com. Well, there's certainly going to be no shortage of headlines impacting the world of agriculture, so we hope you join us here next time for This Week in Agribusiness as we dive through what is going on in our industry. Take care, everyone. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studios. For more than 70 years and 3 generations, Strauss has been manufacturing high-performance German-engineered workwear, work boots, and safety equipment. Prepare for the next growing season at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.